Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to an incredible match from the Aimchess Rapid Play-In tournament in 2023. The Aimchess Rapid event is part of the Champion Chess Tour that's going on now through the whole year. It's an online chess event and the concept of this beautiful tournament was a little bit different. First we have seen 9 rounds of rapid chess and then the best players from the Swiss tournament are moving up to the knockout stage, and then in the knockout stage they have to play 2 games of rapid chess again, but if both of the games end with equal results, of course, then they have to play the so-called Armageddon game, in which white has 10 minutes on the clock and black has 7 minutes on the clock. If, again, the game ends with a draw, then black is winning the game because of the lower time control. So, such a thing happened in a beautiful match between Magnus Carlsen and my landsman here from Croatia, Ivan Šarić. Ivan Šarić is really the best player here in Croatia. Awesome performance he had so far in his career. He was also the European chess champion. So now he faces Magnus Carlsen. He beat Magnus Carlsen already once in his life. So it's now very intense game. And the first 2 games ended actually with a draw. They had to play the Armageddon game. In the first game, I think, the critical position. Here, Magnus Carlsen played a beautiful move, king to h3, and then eventually played bishop to f5. Very important move because he wanted to pick up now the pawn on h4 here. If we play that immediately, then of course a rook to h7 would happen. So far Magnus controlled the h7 square with the move bishop to f5, and after a couple more moves we had this position in which Magnus had now here 2 connected passers on the f and g file, and basically this is unstoppable. Ivan Šarić tried to battle here with the move rook to c2, but now g4 of course by Magnus. Rook to c3, you cannot play d3 or something because rook takes d6 is going to happen, so the rook will get behind. So here after move g4, Ivan Šarić tried rook to c3, Magnus went with the king very active and the king to g6. Here in this position Ivan Šarić resigned. So this was now the first rapid game. Look at this, g5 is going to happen, then f6, and in some lines we are even threatening here with the white pieces some checkmate on back rank. So it's a simple win here for white. So in the second game, Ivan Šarić got back. He got this position, really a dynamic position. Look where he has already placed his minor pieces in the center of the board. The bishop on c1, although didn't play so far, very active, targeting also the pawn on h6. The queen also very active, targeting the f7. So look at this beautiful attacking harmony with the white pieces. Magnus in this particular position cracked and played now the move queen to f6, which was not good, hoping maybe for this line knight takes d7, queen takes f5, in which I think black should be perfectly fine. But of course here after move queen to f6, Ivan Šarić played the beautiful knight takes h6. First the check, we have g takes h6, and now knight takes d7 comes here with a beautiful fork. And now after a couple more moves the game was simply over here from Magnus Carlsen. So let's keep now to the Armageddon game. In the Armageddon game, really wild things happen. So here Magnus had to play with the white pieces, Ivan Šarić with the black pieces. As I said, 10 minutes for white, 7 minutes for black, but white now needs to win the game. Let's see now what happened. The game finished a couple of minutes ago. So here Magnus opened with the move e4. Ivan Šarić's response was e5, knight to f3, knight to f6. We have now the Petrov defense, the Russian game is on the board. Knight takes e5, we have now the move d6, knight to f3, and after move knight to e4, we have now the French attack with the move d3. Then now the knight drops back, and now d4 here by Magnus Carlsen. And usually bishop to e7 are good lines. d5 is also perfectly fine, going into symmetrical stuff, which I think is perfectly fine for black here, because you need to draw in the Armageddon game. But Ivan Šarić spiced up the game with a beautiful line with the move g6, which becomes now a more sort of King's Indian structure. Of course not the same, but in the King's Indian spirit, sort of playing the fianchetto bishop on g7. And Ivan Šarić is really master of the King's Indian. He played it very often with great success with the black pieces. So that's why really natural choice for him to play the fianchetto setup. After move bishop to d3, bishop to g7, kingside castling, and now black has also some realistic chances with this long diagonal on dark squares with the beautiful bishop on g7. And I think this is maybe a more active way to play the Petrov defense with the black pieces. In my opinion, this is a good choice also for Ivan Šarić, because the game is not so symmetrical. Of course, we have still this pawn symmetry where we have 4 pawns on the queen side, 3 pawns on the king side, but at least we have played a different style here. At least white didn't play the same setup. So in my opinion, this is really, really a beautiful choice. Now the game can explode here, especially on the queen side, because here after king side castling and h3 by Magnus Carlsen, rook to e8, and now c4. So you see the game is becoming more and more imbalanced by this pawn moves here on the queen side. So now Ivan Šarić plays on an interesting idea, b6, trying to play a double fianchetto, and in some lines, of course, also to break and enter here with the move c5. So here knight to c3, we have bishop to b7, bishop to f4, knight from b to d7, and now d5 by Magnus Carlsen. Because if you play something like bishop to e3, then d5 is coming for sure. Playing in sort of a Grunfeld style, breaking here this small pawn chain that white is building here. This flexible pawn structure in the center of the board has to be broken now, I think, with move d5, and black should be actually very, very solid here. So that's why d5 by Magnus. He never allows d5 by black. He has now also good squares here for the knight later, knight to d4, maybe later also the knight can jump on c6. So far the bishop is protecting the square, but you see Magnus is already targeting some weaknesses in black's camp. So knight to c5, Ivan Šarić attacks the bishop, bishop to c2, knight to e4, beautiful liberating move. Now the bishop comes into the game. That's a good move, really a beautiful positional move by Ivan Šarić, getting the pieces simply very active. It's pretty equal here. Black doesn't have weaknesses, I think, so far in the position. The pieces are active. So in my opinion, Ivan Šarić has really equalized the game in an early stage of the game with the black pieces here against Magnus Carlsen. Knight to e4, knight to e4. The knight is centralized. You don't want to give up, of course, your bishop for a knight. Then black could have an advantage with the bishop pair in the center of the board. So far Magnus is not risking anything, so that's why he first protects the pawn on b2. We have queen to f6. Look at this, Ivan Šarić plays very actively here, connects now the rooks here on the back rank, attacks also the bishop, so Magnus has now also to make a reaction. So here bishop to e3, and now comes maybe the first tiny little inaccuracy here by Ivan Šarić. a5 is a logical choice, of course, in some lines, because then you're trying to get the knight on c5, fixing everything. But c5 is actually here the suggested line by Toppen, and this would be very, very interesting, because you're blocking out simply the whole queen side. I think the whole progress of whites here on the queen side, it's not making anything. And even if you play something like, I don't know, d takes c6, bishop to c6, although you have here still this isolated pawn, the knight is so annoying here to handle. The queen is so far protecting the pawn on d6, and in the next couple moves we will eventually play the move rook to d8, and then we can also break and enter with the move d5. So this was maybe a slightly more accurate or more active wave here for Ivan Šarić to playing more aggressively here against Magnus Carlsen's mobile pawn structure. But okay, a5 is a tiny little accuracy, but it's not so easy also, as I said, for white to find opportunities in the game. Magnus goes for this idea, bishop to d4, tries to trade off the bishop. We have bishop takes g7, king to g7, queen to d4. You have to now cover with the move queen to f6, and now Magnus makes maybe also his first tiny little mistake in the game. He had here a beautiful opportunity to play bishop to a4, activating the light square bishop, because we have to say that on this side of the board the light square bishop is not so active. It's also a little bit paralyzed by its own pawn structure c4 d5. Now with this idea, bishop to a4, Magnus had the immediate opportunity to solve the battle on the e file. So here Magnus Carlsen could have won the battle on the e file. Of course, after queen to d4, knight to d4, you have to step back with the rook, and now rook to e1, rook from a to e1 is, in my opinion, I'm not saying a winning game here for white, but a beautiful continuation. In my opinion, black will really have a tough time to defend its position, especially after f3. Look at this. You cannot double up the rooks on the e file because the bishop is targeting this square. So, in my opinion, not really a good game here for black. So, Magnus, on the other hand, after move queen to f6, didn't play bishop to a4. He played bishop to e4. He tried to go into a knight versus bishop's endgame, but it was a risky choice, I think, because when you watch now Magnus Carlsen's pawn structure, you have still too many pawns on light source, which are of course an object of black's attack in the later stage of the game. So black will eventually attack this pawn. So risky choice here by Magnus. So we have queen to d4, knight to d4, rook to e4, and now we have reached the knight versus bishop endgame. But you know, when Magnus is playing chess endgames, it's a different story. It's a different pair of shoes, because Magnus is always spicing up this endgames. He pushes this kind of endgames to the limits. Look at this, what now happened. It was, in my opinion, really incredible now part of the game. So rook from f to d1. Magnus protects now first of all the knight, because you don't want to retreat. The knight is controlling the e2 square, not allowing the rook to get on the second rank, attacking many of the pawns on this second rank. So rook from a to e8. Šarić includes now this other rook into the game. f3, rook to e2, rook to e7, king to f2, h5, h4. Very important move. Maybe it doesn't seem that it's so important to play like this, but h4 keeps, of course, the pawn on dark squares, where the pawn cannot be attacked by the light square bishop. Very important to notice this kind of stuff when you play chess endgames, especially this knight versus bishop endgames. Keep your pawns out of the range of the bishop. So king to f6. Šarić includes the king into the game. The rook comes now into the game. Here Šarić tries to find new opportunities for the bishop into the game. Rook to e1, trading off the pieces, and now we have a really pure knight versus bishop endgames. But the problem, and Magnus realized it in a good way, is that actually king to e5 is not working here immediately. It seems like a logical choice, but Magnus sensed that really in a beautiful way. King to e5 to get the king closer to the center actually is not working, because you get this one, knight to c6, kicking away the king. The king has to come here. Now we get the king closer on f2. You can maybe attack, but now we play g3, and after something like king to f5, knight to d4, king to e5, and king to e3 is solving, I think, every positional problem now in white's position. We will eventually play f4, and we will kick away the king really to the other side of the board. When the king is on f6, it's simply out of game. So really interesting choice here by Magnus. King to e1, not allowing in a more tactical way here the pawn, the move king to e5. So bishop to d7 played by Ivan Šarić. King to f2, we have g5, g3. We have g takes h4, g takes h4, and now bishop to f5. Here Ivan Šarić had maybe even the immediate opportunity to make a draw, maybe make a better continuation. Okay, I'm not saying maybe it's a pure draw, but it would be really interesting idea. So maybe you can pause the video and try to see now here really the best continuation for black. What would you do in this particular position? Okay, here there was actually a different way for Ivan Šarić to include the king on e5. That's the goal. That's the thing that you want to do. Here Ivan Šarić, instead of this move bishop to f5 that he played, he should have played b5. Because after c takes b5, now the king can come closer. You can play king to e3, but now when we take out this one, in my opinion, this will be a different really story. This pawn is weak. We have here the possibilities maybe to play c6 or maybe the move c5. Here black doesn't have so many weaknesses, because you cannot also include the king into the attack. So this was really the way to go. Here Ivan Šarić had really a big opportunity against Magnus Carlsen. Well, he played bishop to f5. Magnus gets now the king closer on e3. Now I look at this king to e5, doesn't make sense, because it simply gets f4 and the king gets kicked away. So with this move b5, Ivan Šarić, as we said, had big chances. Now bishop to b1 played by Ivan Šarić, and now because of the previous mistake by Ivan Šarić, Magnus had now a big opportunity to maybe even win the game immediately. Again, there is a beautiful continuation here for white. What would you do now in this position with the white pieces? Very maybe even tough endgame here to calculate, but pause the video and try to see now the best move here for white. Okay, in these types of endgames, it's always about where you place your pieces, how to activate them further. Here Magnus should have simply left this pawn on a2 unprotected, and he should have played knight to b5, because after bishop to a2, now the king can again get into the center, and now after something like king to f5, here you can pick it up, and now after king to f4, the problem is now you will eventually lose your pawn on d6. You can go for the f3 pawn, we will take out this one, and this pawn is rolling, and the bishop is simply far away from the action. It's game over here for black. Really wild stuff. But after bishop to b1, Magnus played now the move a4, allowing here Ivan Šarić to get back into the game. Magnus has to play now the move b3, and look at this, many pawns are now on light squares where they can be attacked by the light square bishop. So from this point on, it's again unequal here endgame for both sides. Bishop to b1 played by Ivan Šarić, f4, very important move by Magnus, not allowing the king to get closer. The pawn and the knights are restricting the king's ability to play, and again it seems so. Ivan Šarić is getting back in the game. He plays bishop to f5, king to d2. Magnus is trying to reroute the king here on this side of the board. We have bishop to d7, king to c3. The king gets eventually here on the queen side, and after king to g6, here Ivan Šarić hopes that Magnus Carlsen cannot break and enter here, but of course Magnus is now searching for the last opportunity in the game. He plays now the move b4, and again, you can do many things. You can leave the position like this, or you can actually also maybe take out here on b4. Again, maybe tiny little question for you. What would you do? Would you play a takes b4, keeping maybe a more healthy pawn structure, or would you play king to f6 with risk, of course, b takes a5, maybe a weak pawn on the a file, an isolated pawn in the a file? What would you do? Again, it's really tough, this endgames to solve. The endgame stage is a really specific endgame. Okay, actually, a more accurate approach to the game is to play king to f6. Allowing maybe even here, look at this, after b takes a4, b takes a4, allowing maybe the move knight to b3 here for white, but this is not possible because now the king is marching also to the f4 pawn. Look at this, you can maybe take out this one, but now after king to f4, black has also passed here on the f file, and actually here black is even winning the endgame. Black will eventually wait for this pawn here to come on a6 and will push this pawn, and here it's actually a winning game for black. But here after b4, Ivan Šarić played a takes b4, and after king to b4, he's allowing here Magnus Carlsen to get closer and closer to the edge of the board, which is also a good choice here. But Magnus, look at this, still the knight is controlling, of course, the f5 square. We have king to f6, Magnus pushed the pawn further, bishop to a3, king to b5, bishop to f1. Here Ivan Šarić is not allowing, of course, to play king to c6 because you simply take out the pawn on c4, and still after this one, bishop to d5, this is still, I think, equal position, so it would probably end with a draw, although black is up a pawn, but you cannot actually win this types of endgame. So after move knight to c2 that Magnus Carlsen played, of course king to f5 is not possible now immediately because you get the beautiful fork on e3, but now Ivan Šarić makes another blunder in his endgame here. He plays now the move bishop to h3, gets simply out of the attack of the pawn on c4, and here I think Ivan Šarić got a little bit greedy. He wanted to eventually take out the pawn on f4 and going into maybe even favorable endgame for black, but this is not good. A better choice was to play bishop to d3, allowing simply after knight to e3, maybe you can go this way. Again, if white wants to get here on the queen side, then again you control the protection of the square c7. If of course knight to b4 happens, attacking now the bishop, you stay on this diagonal. When the king moves to c6, we will play bishop to c4. Maybe white can pick up the pawn on c7, but now you again go after the f4 pawn. You will push the pawn out further and then maybe give up even the bishop for a pawn, but you have also some chances here. You can also pick up the h4 pawn, so it's a draw for sure. So, but Ivan Šarić, as we said, played bishop to h3, king to c6 was played. He tried now even to win the game. He hoped that he could have something with the f4 pawn here, but it's not working. After king to f4, Magnus grabs now another pawn here, and actually we have now another element in the endgame. We have now two connected pass pawns here on the queen side, which cannot be stopped anymore by the bishop because the bishop can be sacrificed only for one pawn, and then of course you have another one that you can push further. So here Ivan Šarić messed up a draw endgame. King to e4, we have f5, we have d6. Here Magnus pushed the pawn further, also Ivan Šarić pushed the pawn further, but now Magnus is controlling the f3 square, and basically the game is over. So here Ivan tried to get the king back somehow into the defense. Now we have d7, bishop to d7, king to d7. Ivan Šarić took also the pawn, but now the king is far away from the action. Here Magnus had this beautiful move, knight to g2. We have king to f3, knight takes f4, and after king to g3, king to g5. In this position, Ivan Šarić resigned. Really, really wild stuff. Of course, this pawn will be taken with the support of the knight. This pawn can be promoted. The king is also close enough to the action, so it's an endgame simply lost here for black. So incredible endgame here by Magnus. Magnus again pushed it to the limits. That's the thing that Magnus does the best. He plays simply the best chess endgames of all times. Really intense one with great elements. Really, I think also an instructive one. But unfortunately for my lensman, Ivan Šarić, he lost now this Armageddon game. Although we have seen he had many chances to maybe even make a draw in this beautiful endgame. So, okay, Magnus is through now. Tough battle against Ivan Šarić, but Magnus played pretty solid here. I think in this whole chess event he finished in the Swiss system. He finished on the second place, so still Magnus is really in good shape, although he didn't play of course his best chess in the Norway chess tournament. But it seems to me that Magnus Carlsen is feeling really comfortable when he plays online chess or blitz chess, rapid chess. He's feeling more comfortable in this faster time formats where of course you don't have to struggle so much, you don't have to maybe even prepare so much. Sometimes you can play also onto your intuition. So great endgame here again by Magnus. We have to praise it. This is unbelievable how he plays this stage of the game. Simply impossible to play the game like this. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really interesting ideas here for both sides. If you want to see more commented chess games here on my YouTube chess channel, you can also check out our best chess games. Here is the link of whole playlist, and you can also maybe check out the computer chess games, the best chess games played by top engines, which we also analyze here on my YouTube chess channel. Here's also the link of the playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.